Well, welcome back to the Phase podcast, and really excited in our 15-minute ideas that this episode we are thinking about goal setting. And it is wonderful today we're joined with Molly Rackham.
Good morning, everyone.
Great to have you here, Molly. And we're going to be thinking about goal setting all in the space of 15 minutes. So I'm going to set our timer. You ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Tell me, Molly, as we think about it, what is goal setting? What are goal settings?
Yeah, so goals are different things that people can work towards, kind of achievable outcomes that people might have. And that can be in your personal life, in your professional life, in kind of anything. It could be a new skill, it could be loads of different things, something to kind of work towards. And goal setting is something where we intentionally putting those outcomes ahead of us that we want to kind of aim towards.
I guess that, I'm sure pretty much everyone knows what a goal is, that thing you're heading towards, that aim, but it's putting it out there, actually putting it down. Not just retaining it in your brain, but doing something with it. So the idea is that you take whatever it is, like say, whether it's professionally, personally, whether it's in your studies, whatever you're going to do. Why is it important to set goals?
Well, I think there's loads of reasons why setting goals is important. I think by, like you were just saying, around actually putting it down or saying it out loud or sharing it with somebody, almost makes a part of you commit to it. And sometimes when they stay in our head and actually we don't really think them through properly, they just become ideas, and that's not a goal, it's just an idea in your head. So there is definitely an element of that around it, of kind of committing. I think they help motivate us, they give us something to work towards. And in terms of like progress, I think when you've got a goal set, you make more progress because you're able to recognise that progress. So actually when it is just in our head, we might not pick up on all the small things that you've achieved on the way to that goal. And I think they just keep us really focused. I think that's probably one of the best things about a goal, is that actually there can be lots of stuff going on, our goals can change, how we get there might change, but it keeps us focused on this kind of bigger picture, this bigger thing that we're aiming to achieve and get done, and it helps push us there, ultimately.
I love that idea that it helps us move, helps us progress. I mean, we've known each other long enough that Molly, I'm very much around always wanting to move forward.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you think we can sort of get through life without goals?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. I think we would find it harder. I think we have goals whether we write them down or not a lot of the time. I think we're always saying, I would like to do that, or long term I want to achieve this, or by the end of the day I want to get this done on my to-do list. Like even those really small objectives or goals, I think we kind of live in a goal-oriented world, if that makes sense. So I think we could probably get by, but we would lack those small steps of growth, of moving forward, of change, working towards something that we want to achieve, whether that's, like we say, professionally or personally or whatever that could be. So I think we could live in that kind of world, but I don't think we'd get very far. Yeah.
No, I think that's great, and I know it was a bit of a curveball chucking that at you, but I'm aware that we spend a lot of time talking to young people, and often ask them, what goals do you have, and some of them will say, I haven't got any goals. But I love the way what you've said there is actually sometimes just around what I want to get done today. Yeah, we might not call that a goal, but it is, because it's something we're looking to achieve, we're looking to do, we want to tick off whether it's written down or not. So I think that's quite a helpful, almost broaden it out and demystifying that sense of, I have to have goals, I've got to have that progression. Sometimes it is just around, I need to mow the grass. Actually, I need to go and get a loaf of bread. Yeah,
definitely. And I think those smaller ones are equally as important as those bigger ones. And often those smaller ones are part of bigger ones. And I quite like that kind of analogy of these small pieces of puzzle kind of building up to this bigger goal that we have. And I think we all live in goals, we're all having things we're aiming to do, whether we achieve them or not at the end of the day. Like if you end up not mowing the grass, actually you do it at the weekend or whatever that looks like. Being able to kind of set that stuff out in front of us, whether we think about it or whether we're writing it down and telling people. And I think that's maybe where the difference between having goals and goal setting is. I think we all have goals, we all live in a goal world, but actually goal setting is being really intentional and really dedicated with that commitment of, this is what I want to achieve, this is how I'm going to do it, and I'm going to hold myself accountable to that. I think that's probably where the difference lies.
Oh, wonderful. Which moves us on nicely. So we talked about goals, we talked about what they are, the fact that they're big, they're small, they're everyday things, they're big life things, and everything else in between. But how do you go about setting a goal?
Very good question. It's one that almost needs a bit of a personal response because everyone will do it a little bit differently. All our goals are quite unique and individual. But I think one of the important things is to be really clear about your goal and to be ambitious about your goal. We absolutely all have those smaller goals like getting a loaf of bread or mowing the grass. But actually, if we want to stretch ourselves, if we want to be outside our comfort zone and achieve something like further in the future, something bigger, whatever that might be, something exciting, like be ambitious with yourself. Don't be unrealistic. Actually, my goal is to go to the moon in the next 6 months. Probably quite unrealistic, certainly for someone like me, but actually be ambitious, be really clear. And think about your values, think about the things that are important to you in that. So actually, how does that link in with your goals in that time? Dream big, I think, is one of those things, and consider why you're doing it. Yes, if your goal is to go to the moon, why do you want to go to the moon? Is it because your values are being adventurous and curiosity and having questions and exploring? Is that the kind of values that goal is lying on, and why do you want to do it?
Oh, I like that. So I suppose as we're thinking about goal setting, yes, there's those everyday tasks, all those things we want to do, but we're really thinking about those things that are going to move us on to become maybe the person we want to be, think about those values, move us on in the sense of, where do I want to be in the next 6-12 months' time, say whether that's academically, whether that's physically, whether that's mentally, emotionally, whatever that might be. So that sense of dream big. And so I suppose, again, a lot of people I talk to, there's often a hesitation of wanting to dream big because, well, if I say that, what happens if I don't get there? What happens if I can't do it? What if it's too big? I put that thing out there and it's too much of a stretch. I can't do it. Perhaps that makes me feel like a failure. What's some ways that we can get beyond that or help us with that?
Yeah, I think something that's really important to do when you've got big dreams or big goals or big ambitions and you've been ambitious with that stuff is to break that down into smaller bits. Because on its own, it can feel like massive, like you're saying, like really unachievable, and something that's actually going to take you years to achieve that, or actually I've got this goal to be in this career or do this or work towards that or be brilliant at that skill, which is actually going to take a lot of time and dedication and work, and there's going to be hurdles and all of that stuff. So I think breaking it down into those smaller bits is really important. One that also helps you track your progress as well. There might be a small section which you tick off this tiny part of your goal, and just by doing that, you're that little step closer, and that helps with that motivation and kind of recognizing that progress as well. So I think the place to kind of start would be figuring out what's getting in the way of you achieving that goal. What's standing in your way? What are the barriers? What are the obstacles? And I find it really useful to write that stuff down. So a goal I've got at the moment is to become a reader. Not really somebody who does lots of reading. Generally find reading a little bit more difficult. It's just not something I've really invest a lot of time into books, basically. I'm definitely more of a podcast one. Can recommend one. Actually, I know a good one. We're on it right now. More of a definitely like TV, podcast, documentary. That's kind of how I absorb information. But I really want to be a reader. I really want to be someone who gets lots of information out of books. And when I was setting that goal, something important for me wasn't to have a goal of I want to read 10 books. Actually, I want to be a reader. It was about being instead of doing.
This episode is sponsored by our free breathing techniques resource, designed to bring peace and focus to your day. Dive in and discover how to master the art of calm breathing. Check out phase-hitchin.org/resources for all of our free resources.
Okay, I like that. Instead of having that big goal, it is about that's where I want to be long term. I want to be known someone that's a reader over. Read 10 books, tick, done.
Yeah, because I think then that helps us put habits in place where actually that just becomes part of our life. It becomes part of who we are, instead of I'm just aiming to get to this 10 and when I'm really looking forward to it just being over. Like I just read my 10 books, get it out of the way. But actually I want that to be something that I invest in my life longer term, which can be harder because sometimes then it's hard to see where the end of that goal is. But I think it's really important to think about actually, can we make our goal a being goal? I want to be more like this or be more organised.
So it's a real sort of personal progression moving forward, something that you take on. So we're saying about that, understanding what barriers are in your way, and I guess starting to think in how do we remove some of those barriers. So just, I don't know if you can give us an example about your books, like if you want to become a reader, what barrier have you faced and what have you taken out of the way?
Yeah, definitely. I think some of the barriers that I have faced is I haven't been reading books that I find interesting. So straight away, I read 3 pages and I want to be over. So that's definitely one. Finding things that are interesting, things that I want to learn about. Definitely somebody who reads books for a reason. I want to get something out of it. So that's kind of been a barrier. And generally just finding reading a little bit harder. And something I can do to kind of overcome that one is around finding books that are maybe a bit more visual, maybe the font's a bit bigger. Actually, they're a bit easier to read. So there's definitely figuring out what those obstacles are. One obstacle I had was that I don't have anywhere where I have books in my house. So I don't have a bookshelf. I don't have anywhere where I put books up and I walk past them every day. So even just that being something that's just part of my lifestyle, something I see every single day, I guess has become a barrier. And actually I want to kind of take those barriers away and actually have that something where I'm walking past every day and being, oh, I could pick a book up and take it with me today, or whatever that might be. So finding out what those obstacles are and breaking your massive dream big goal into small objectives, which are shorter term, things that you can tick off. So turn each of those obstacles, so my obstacle, I don't have a bookshelf in my house, so I'm not seeing books, turns into an objective of, okay, I'm going to get a bookshelf in my house. And that becomes a small part of that bigger goal, and lots of those little bits will head you in the right direction.
I like that. It reminds me of James Clear talks about habit stacking. And I just have a picture in mind of, he'll talk about actually if you want to read more books, put your book on top of your pillow. So you've got to move it at night. And, so therefore you're putting it in your way. You're actually creating a positive obstacle that you're trying to work towards. Habit stacking is all around that idea of, what's one habit you already do that you can put something else with it so it works with it. I enjoy having a coffee in the morning, and there's sort of a habit of doing some reading, strangely enough, in the morning. So when I make my coffee, I do that reading then, and a habit I've removed from that is then I don't look at any social media until I've done that. So it's sort of building those three sort of habits together.
That's really, I might steal that one.
You're welcome to it. So in our last few minutes, Molly, what are some of the key ideas that are going to help me work towards setting good goals and making goals achievable?
So I think my biggest kind of tip, I suppose, or thing to think about is embracing what you like and how you work. I think that's really important. I think sometimes we see things online and we think, oh, I should be doing it like that. Or you hear somebody else talk about this amazing goal that they've achieved and you think, okay, I need to do all the things that they're doing. Actually think about what works for you, what things do you like, what's going to motivate you. So are you a visual person? Are you somebody who actually, I want to have a calendar stuck up where I can tick things off, or I want to do some bullet journaling, or I want to mind map that out, or put post-it notes over my house to remind me to do things? Are you a visual person? Or maybe a digital person? Actually, do you want to set reminders on your phone? There's different apps you can get. There's an app called Forest app, which is really good for revision or having kind of focus time. And I think that's quite a good idea for when you're like, okay, I'm going to have my 20 minutes of reading now. I'm going to set my Forest app up. I can't go on my phone, and it just focuses that time. Some people aren't like that. Some people would rather do paper stuff or other stuff, but actually if you're somebody who uses your phone quite a lot or digital stuff, then that's a really good way to do it. And similarly social, actually, do you like spending time with other people? I want to go out and do things. For me, when I wanted to become more active, I knew I'm not somebody who likes to go running. I just hate running. As much as I can try it and have tried it, it's just not for me. So actually I started playing netball because that was something that I found a lot more fun. It was social. It just suited who I was a little bit more as my way of being active. So I would say, don't worry about doing it the same way as everybody else, but find those things that really work for you, and the things that you like, and maybe your values in that as well. Kieran, have you got any tips?
One of my tips is actually to break it down. So when you have that big goal, I know you talked about the sort of barriers, but actually listen it out. If this is my big dream that I want to do, what are those smaller steps that are going to get to it? Like you said about getting a bookcase, having some books you can read. Tony Robbins says, setting goals is the first step in turning the invisible into the visible. And I love that idea. If I want to get somewhere, actually it's around progress, not perfection. And I think that's really, really important.
That's a really good tip. I like that one.
Wonderful. Now, Molly, as we come to the final part, we've got some questions from our listeners that I want to throw to you as we finish. I want to set my big goal. So you've talked to me about actually writing it down, putting it out there, making it a stretch. You've talked about taking the barriers away. And you've talked about how we, know yourself, whether you're a visual person, a digital person, and think about some of those tips. What is sort of one of the final things as it comes to setting goal? If I'm sitting here, I've listened to all this, I think, how do I start? What would be the sort of the one key thing that would get me or help me to start with setting goals?
I think the first thing to do is talk to somebody about it. As soon as you just get it out in the open, whether you've not written it down or decided necessarily what that goal is, just having that conversation with someone can be like really valuable. It helps you kind of work through it in your head, process it, get somebody else's perspective on it, and maybe kind of figure out what does that goal actually look like. And there's something inside us that just gets a little bit excited when we talk to somebody about these things. I know you definitely do that, Kieran, where you're aiming for something and you talk to somebody about it and it just ignites something in you that you're really excited and motivates you to get there. So that is the first thing, I think, if somebody's thinking, I've got this goal, don't really know where to go with it, talk to somebody about it, have a conversation before you kind of get it down, and yeah, continue that conversation around your goals.
Wonderful, thank you, Molly. Well done. Managed all of that in 15 minutes. For our 15-minute big ideas, that was our goal, and we achieved it. I like that. Now, we had a few questions in from people, and so I'll chuck these at you as a bit of bonus content.
Yeah, go on.
So, our quick fire questions are: what if my goal changes part-way through?
So if your goal changes halfway through or like just before the end or just near the beginning, that's okay. You can alter your goals, you can change your goals. At the end of the day, they're yours. So you can reshape them. There's lots of different directions to get to the same place. And I think that's really important. If there's an end goal or somewhere you're aiming for, there's probably hundreds of different ways that you can get there. So don't be afraid to kind of go back to the previous turning point and try a different direction. Or if it changes, have kind of a different end goal. None of the work that you've done, none of the thinking you've done or the actions you've taken will be wasted. They'll all have got you somewhere.
Wonderful, I like that. It also makes me think that sometimes even the goal we set right at the beginning isn't always correct. And actually it's as we make progression and move forward that we realise the destination has changed. Again, you know, that sense of thinking about our values. And so I'd just say if you feel like your goal has changed partway through, actually it's a chance to reflect and think why. Perhaps that goal's actually grown.
Yeah.
Perhaps you realise it just wasn't big enough. Or there's something else that's come in, factors outside, external factors that mean that goal isn't achievable. Wonderful. Okay, our second question that we've got is, what if I don't achieve my goal?
Oh. Now, if you don't achieve your goal, again, a bit like what I was saying, what you've done on the run up to that has not been wasted. Give yourself more time. I think that's one of the bigger things. Actually, if we've set out for a goal, if I say I want to be a reader by the end of the year, if it gets to Christmas and I've read barely anything, that doesn't mean my goal stops right there. Actually, maybe I just need to rework it, rethink, okay, what can I do differently? How else I need to kind of work towards this? What my goal might be a bit different, my timescales might be a bit different. So don't be worried if you haven't achieved your goal. Keep having those conversations with people, keep thinking about it and trying new things, and you'll get there. Give yourself time, give yourself a bit of grace. So push yourself, but take care of yourself as well. That's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, as we've already said, I really think it's around, actually, it's not perfection, but it's about progress.
100%.
It's not a linear thing. Often a journey, any goal is very up and down, has even, you know, steps backwards, steps forwards. So if you haven't achieved it, it's more of a not yet than a not at all. And then the final one, as we come to finish, is should I set long or short-term goals?
I think the more goals, the better. I think you can overwhelm yourself, obviously, with a number of goals, but I think there is value in both of those things. Having that kind of bigger picture you're aiming towards, maybe in a year's time, in 5 years' time, kind of in your life, whatever that might look like. But also, yeah, those shorter term goals. And I think actually when we break down our big goals into smaller parts like we were talking about, they have just become short-term goals. So I think it's really important to have both and to work with both. To kind of get to where we want to be and to continue learning and growing.
Wonderful. Yeah, no, just to add, I'd say I fully agree. You know, sometimes that longer term goal needs those shorter term bits in between. You know, F1, they have pit stops because they've got to come back in, do some stuff, and then go back out. You know, over half time in sports, there's that shorter term. I think it's really important to get us to the longer term. And the final thing actually I wanted to share just on goal setting is that I really want to encourage people, if you've got a goal, don't wait. Don't think, actually, next week I'll start, next month, or I'll wait until the new year. Actually, you don't need to. You can start right now. Set that goal out. Take on board what Molly said is really good. So Molly, thank you so much for all of the knowledge, the wisdom, the thoughts and the ideas you've given. We look forward to you coming back and sharing some more.
Oh, thanks for having me. Yeah, if you've guys got any thoughts, then do let us know. Drop us a message or drop a comment. It'll be really interesting to hear what you guys think. If you've got any tips or any goals yourself that you just want to share and have someone hold you accountable and cheer you on, then yeah, do feel free to share them.
We will see you on our next episode of 15-Minute Big Ideas. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Phase podcast. Can we gently encourage you to like, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you get your podcast from? We look forward to you joining us in the next Phase podcast.